Welcome to Flat Earth Debate, Uncut and After Show. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they premiere, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon, crypto and thanks button in the info box below the video. Speaking of Patreons, I'm going to do a quick shout out to all of you who do support me on Patreon. So, a massive shout out of thanks and appreciation to Moon Harvest, Amish Earther, Naughty Thumbnails, Mitch Kennedy, Original D Rose, Rod, The Name's Burley, Twad Wazzle, Jason Hornsby, Christoph Fournier, Flat Earth Travolta, J Melds24, Unimento, M Iron26, Endless Goldly Buchanan, Retro Bill, More Books, Canna Bear, Fiber Oats, Bogey, John Kays, Patrick Gunnels, Banter, Mel B Styles, Hairy Blade, Mobile Max 777, Rob W, Reese Pound, Del West Watson, Maria Nealands, Unbelievable Productions, Blue Ridge Ranger, Abraham Mohammed, Skeptic 936, Life is Short, Texas Mike, Tina Baker, David Wayne Foster, and Dank. So another massive thank you to all of you for supporting me on Patreon. Now I will hand over to whoever is in Discord and Google so you can enjoy their dulcet tones while I set up for today's live show.
Oh, that reminds me. Okay, so we're getting rain coming up now next. Well, Nathan's in. And
Good morning,
is that Neil who joined?
10th.
No, it's good morning, Righteous.
It's 10th man. Good morning, 10th man.
So Nathan,
Hello.
Did you accidentally knock something over that caused everything, or I can't follow the?
No, the series of events for why the computer crashed yesterday, I think, was coincidental. So what happened was I knocked the Stream Deck off, right, and went, oh no, picked it up and nothing went wrong. Then I pressed the button to open the line for Discord, which had been closed after closing out the live show. And as soon as I pressed that button, everything went black and the computer froze. I was like, oh. Now, coincidentally, do you remember about a week ago, I told Neil, I did actually have a small issue over the weekend where it black screened and then restarted. Well, it was the same exact thing. But I was like, oh, I've just dropped the Stream Deck, which has recently been repaired. I pressed a button on it and then it crashed. Just coincidence. So I had a chat with my tech guy and I explained that when it crashed, I got it working again and thought, what I'll do is typically what I'll do is lower every single notch and then start to raise them up to figure out what caused the crash. Now, when I did that, the first thing I go to, because it's normally always the problem, or was for the last 12 months with the old setup, the memory. So what I did was turn the memory down one notch, and then it wouldn't even turn back on. And the motherboard gave me an error code for memory. I'm like, so at whatever temperature it had reached after a couple of hours, 3 hours of use, when it crashed and I restarted it, retraining the memory, even at a slower speed, wouldn't work. So I'm like, so it's a memory issue. But to get the computer to just come back on, because by then it had corrupted Windows and done all sorts of other stupid shit in BIOS. So what I had to do is reset the BIOS with a switch that is effectively the same as taking the little battery out on your motherboard. There's a little watch battery you can take out. Well, there's a button that will just disconnect that circuit. So I press that button, so it resets all the BIOS. Then it still wouldn't post, so then I had to take out one of the memory sticks, which in this PC, the motherboard's in backwards. So the motherboard and all its components are facing in against a heatsink. So in order to do it, you have to do it blind, looking at the back of the motherboard, with one hand reaching in between a tiny little gap of a heatsink and a very high voltage cable. And then release one of the sticks of RAM, which I did. So I took one of the sticks of RAM out and then managed to get it to post on one stick of RAM at a lower speed. Then I put the other stick back in, got it to post at the other lower speed that two sticks runs at. Then I enabled XMP, but at the lower speed that caused all the problem. So it was running at 6,000. I ran it at 5,800. 5,800 is what it's running at now. Now, given that it seems to run for about a week at 6,000 without crashing, and then when it has an issue, I've tried to retrain the memory and it hasn't succeeded, I'm pretty certain, again, after discussing this with Craig, because he reminded me, he's like, when we first put the memory in, we did struggle to get it to post at 6,000. I'm like, yeah, I do remember that. And also, because I was so elated that it did eventually post, I don't actually remember thoroughly testing the memory. I just went straight to turning the notches back up to where I knew they worked, rather than testing it, and then moving on to the GPU because it was new. So strictly speaking, I never really thoroughly tested the memory to begin with at its rated speed, which is 6,000. But given how stable it would remain for about a week solid, I think at one notch, or two, strictly speaking, 2 notches down at 5,800, it'll hopefully remain stable now forever. He says again. We're
Just
into
get
this
it
stupid nonsense.
together, please. Just
He's
keep
trying,
it
Neil.
together.
He's trying, Neil.
Not trying hard enough if I got to keep dealing with this every other week.
Well, you were dealing with your car for years.
Yeah, well, it's gone
That's
from
true.
well, it's not. It is every other week. You're right. So far, since the upgrade to Beast, it's now Beast 2.0, passive PC that was bought very kindly by one of the members. Now it's in its second configuration, and instead of being a daily event where it falls over, or twice daily event, or if it's being tested and tweaked, multiple times a day falling over, it's gone down to once every couple of weeks. Oh, that's fine. If that was how it remained forever, it's not actually that bad if that was how it stayed. I'm not going to moan too much. It's pretty reliable. Not anywhere near the standard I would hope for, obviously, but it's one way, okay, fine, that's a bit annoying if it crashes every couple of weeks. Once, if it happens in a show, I have to restart or cool the PC down or do whatever I'm going to do, pull sticks of RAM out. But, okay, that's the sacrifice you pay for having a free PC that's probably worth about $4,000, even though it's
No.
empty.
The problem is you won't listen to us. 10th man, we tried to tell him, give it a female name and be a little more gentle with it. You know, like ships have names, cars have names, usually a female. She's riding good. She's sailing well today. Nathan wants to call this thing the beast, and it is becoming a beast to him. Just name the computer a nice, gentle female name, Rebecca, Rachel, Sarah, and you'll see the difference.
Okay, right.
And
Well,
be easy on her.
Shaniqua needs to be treated mean. Rode
I didn't
hard,
say
and put away
Shaniqua.
wet.
How does it go? He put her back hard and wet.
Rode hard and put away wet.
Ro- Yes, that's the terminology.
Yeah. I don't ride it hard. Everything's turned down, right? The CPU is clocked lower, Neil. It's not being abused. A overclock would be abusing it, not an underclock. That's being very gentle to it. It's stroking it nicely and caressing it metaphorically. Same with the
While
GPU.
you're playing video games for hours?
It's that's what it's for. It's like saying you're abusing that car. Am I? What am I doing? Driving it for hours and hours.
Well, what are you doing? I'm driving it.
It's fine. It's everything on it's undervolted and underclocked because it's a funny configuration. But you know, now it's a hell of a lot more reliable than it was, Neil. You cannot deny that. I spent an entire year trying to get the thing to just not overheat during a show.
No, it's 100 times better than what it was. That's for sure. We can actually function this way.
Yeah. We'll see if I'm right. You know, I think I am. I think given how stable it's been, the fact that it can hold stability for a couple of weeks solid, with a slight reduction in the advertised speed to the memory from 6,000 to 5,800, I think it will remain stable. Or if it's not, it'll crash in a month, which means it's so close to being stable that it's just once in a blue moon that it might, with a strange solar radiation in the day, it crashes once a month. Then I'd have to go, okay, fine, I'll turn the RAM down again to 5,600.
Hey Nathan, good morning, everybody, by the way.
Hello.
Have you ever thought of, although I admit it may be an expense in which you may not want to be able to, be burdened of, but getting a tower or a computer specifically for gaming, or just have one specifically for your show that takes less stress than the one that you do most of your recreational gaming and things of that sort?
That's what this computer is.
Considering you
That's
do
what
these
it
things with
is.
money, you know?
That's what it is. That's like saying,
Oh, okay.
shouldn't you buy like a little roundabout town car so you don't have to use your Audi? Why? Well, you don't want to put the stress on that nice car. What, the one with the nice engine that's designed to drive? Yeah. No, that's absurd. That's what it's for.
Okay, you know better. I don't know. I'm not a CPU dude. I'm not really into it.
No, I'm not going to buy
I think what D Rose. I think what D Rose is.
Let me just answer him. But yes, I appreciate why you're asking that. About 5 years ago, the only way to play a game on a live stream would be to have a computer for streaming and a computer for playing the computer game, because computers simply weren't powerful enough to do that. This computer is easily powerful enough to do that. As you can see, it does do that. That doesn't mean that it's falling over because it's playing a game. It's falling over because it's unstable. It's unstable because the cooler can only dissipate max, in ideal circumstances, 150 watts. The chip is 250 watts stock, and it's on a motherboard that is designed to give it unlimited power. So it will easily, I've seen it spike well over 300 watts out of the box as standard stock. So to counteract that, I've had to turn it down, limit it. Well, in so doing, it wouldn't matter if I was playing a game or not. By trying to stop the amount of power that it uses, the CPU that is, which makes very little difference if you're playing a game or not. Once it's running all of my software and 2 monitors, the CPU's running fast. Right now, it's running at a reasonable temperature because I've tuned it. But that's why it's unstable. I've just got to find that point where I can detune it and remain stable, which is similar to getting a car to be tuned up to go fast. Yeah, I'm tuning it down. Power and efficiency are not mutually exclusive. They're effectively one and the same thing. If you try and get a computer or a car to go faster, you are trying to get better efficiency out of it. More bang for less buck. You put a little bit of fuel and get more bang out of it. That's getting it to go faster. But it's also, simultaneously, what you would do if you went the other way. I want it to go further on that bang, not faster. That's efficiency. Well, they're one and the same thing. They're on the same scale. Yeah? Well, I'm not trying to, because of the way I'm describing these, you guys have got the impression that I'm trying to turbo boost my computer and I'm riding it hard. No, I'm trying to turn it down and keep it stable.
No, I got that. I think what D Rose was trying to express is if the person has a company car, but he's got his own personal car, then they just use the company car when they're doing company business. So a computer just for the show, and then a computer for everything else that you do. Well, that day will come when you get a little bit more money. I'm assuming.
There you go.
I know what you mean.
Did I just hear?
Yes, it would be
Did I just
lovely.
hear Nathan?
It would be lovely to have an audio computer with a desk attached, and a streaming computer that's got OBS attached, and a gaming computer, and a room operation computer that controls all the thermostats and where all the remote control technology comes out of the floors. That would be lovely. I just don't have that. But I do
One day you will.
do have separate computers. So there's typically, this computer doesn't get used for much because it's in the lounge. Now, in order to have a show at all, I have to have a multifunctional room. So I have to kick the wife and kids out daily. That's not necessarily something I brag about, but it's just the way we operate here. So while my wife works, I have to keep myself occupied because it's a very small property. So we have to be mutually respectful of what's going on at what given time. And in this instance, the room transforms. So in order for me to do the show, I convert the room into a studio daily. And after I'm finished, I pack it all back away again against the walls. Everything's on arms. The mic, the camera, the monitor, the screen. It's all tucked away so that kids can't destroy it. But then once the show's finished, it all gets packed back up. Everything gets tucked away. I put the microphone preamp back on its shelf. I put the stream deck away, which is why it's precariously out, ready to get knocked off by me.
Wow.
It's all.
I didn't know you did all of that. You break it down and then reset it up?
Yeah. I have to break everything
Wow.
down. I can't just sit in a studio with lights everywhere I mean, at the moment, my lights aren't functioning. Two of the remote control doobries that turn them on and off have broken. But typically, I bring in the lights so that if you look at the last 2 days of me on camera, I'm not on camera today because there's been a crash yesterday and I don't want to worry about it. That's a different issue. I'm not lit. There's no lights. It's very annoying. I look terrible on camera because there's no studio lights. Well, where do you think they come from in a room that kids run around in daily? Well, they have to be put into place. I have to swing them out and set them up and make sure it's not every day. I have to make sure that the camera's not pointing at the back of the telly monitor. The light's not bleeding into the lens. I have to reposition absolutely everything. The mic, the preamp, the stream deck, the monitor, the screen. Everything has to be put out every single day. Well, the computer's dual purpose. Once it stops being a streaming computer, what do you think it turns into? It turns into my wife's Netflix computer and my kids. It's just the house computer. But for these hours, it's just for the studio function of this room. But I can't then say, well, I'm going to have another one that's in here that's separate. Well, when are they going to use it when I'm in here? The other people that would be using it to play Netflix on? No, they can't because I'm in the room for those particular hours.
You need a studio.
Yeah.
You need a studio, and that's the end of that. Give, set, and go. Set it up. Let's get Nathan a studio. You know what? The union leader has spoken. Let's get him a salary now, too.
I've got a salary. I'm paid a salary. I was talking about this before we started recording. Oh, no, it wasn't. I was talking about it with Anthony. Anyway, I thought it was... I sometimes confuse conversations with people that are actually conversations on this show. I was chatting with Anthony before the show, and I was pointing out that, how elated I am. The reason I shout out the Patreons daily is because I thank them daily. Every time I go into about this sort of time of the month. Oh, no, I'm in the red. I'm poor. And then, oh yeah, Patreon. Thank God for Patreon. But they're keeping the lights on. So, when you say, we need to get them a salary, well, that's what Patreon is. They're keeping the lights on for the show. They're literally paying the electricity bill.
No, I got that, but you deserve a salary. Like a 40-hour week, Nathan Oakley, this amount of money. It's going to come, man. We're going to blow up soon. I agree
40 hours?
with 10.
You haven't
always
beyond.
said we're going to hit the millions, and I'm going with 10.
A 40-hour week is just a normal working week, which most normal people do, right? When I was a rep, I was doing a 60 to 80, maybe 100-hour week, right? Now, it's from the moment I wake up at about 7 o'clock, if I'm lucky, if the kids don't wake me up at 6, right? The moment I get up, I will start checking messages and responses through all the YouTube Studio app functions, so I can get straight to the messages. That's one of the first things I do. After check email, check Skype. Then I'll get out of bed because the iPad's right next to me. So before I'm even out of bed, I've done 3 things for YouTube, and it doesn't stop till the moment I go to bed. Last night, it didn't stop till 3 a.m. I was still testing at 3 a.m. Then got up and took the kids swimming at one of them at 9 a.m. 9 a.m. I should say. Anyway, so it's just like, morning, noon, and night is dedicated to flat Earth and flat Earth debating and YouTubing.
Have you ever thought about having a separate channel just for debunking the Feast of Nonsense so the algorithm can help you?
I don't think the algorithm would allow that. Once your web is set out there, like with Russell Brand, right? All of his subcategory channels were immediately all demonetized. It didn't matter that they were all set up on different accounts. Do you know what I mean? Anything associated to him got... I just think we wouldn't help me algorithmically if I set up a brand new spanking channel on a completely separate platform or separate, account structure. I don't think eventually it would twig that it was me and it would just stick me back in the same.
They know who you are. Nathan Oakley's name is ringing bells. You're not going to get away.
Yeah. See, do we believe that? Or do we believe that there's a chance?
If you can show me, it's chance in this regard. If you can show me that would statistically offer me an advantage, then perhaps I would look into it. But based on there's a chance you might build up this. It's like people got me to do it with TikTok, and there was another one, Odyssey, and I chucked a load of time at them. I'm like, this needs your full attention, like I give to YouTube to build it. To do that, I need 3 heads. I physically cannot do it. I mean, I did plumb a load of time in it to the detriment of YouTube at the time. But, it's like, no, unless I put my gas pedal in TikTok's car and stamp on it there, or have someone else to do it, because you're only one man, right?
Yeah, I'm not asking you to do that.
Yeah, it's worth speculating about that. I'm not moaning that you are.
You're not listening to 10th Man. He said we're going to be big one day.
In the meantime, Neil,
I know we are.
Neil,
In the meantime, I'll just keep thanking my Patreons because I am very grateful to them. Now we are joined by 10th Man, Neil, D-Rose, Refracted Curvature, Adam, Arwin, Righteous, and a whole bunch of people in Discord. So welcome, one and all.
Hello, hello, hello.
Good
Hey.
afternoon.
Get it on.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning, good to have you all. Any
to be
evidence of
here.
a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth?
What's that? What's a presupposed spherical Earth? Can you break that down for me?
Going to need breaking down because the terminology is going to have to subtly change, Neil. So when I say presupposed, I've been ignoring the sounds of those V10s and V12 Lamborghinis going along the highway above me, because the presupposition, simultaneously something that I moan at people like Brian and Anthony Riley for allowing their opponents to have on their behalf. In other words, Anthony will start with the fact that it's a presupposition of an R value. It isn't. It's a derived calculable value taken from a flat measurement. So to say it's a presupposition would be to say we start with the assumption that we're on a ball. Well, yeah, that's true. But little did the anti-flat earthers and globe believers realise when they did so, they ignored the devastating truth of where their ball earth came from. It's not presupposition, it's flat earth requirement. So I feel the terminology should really change, perhaps, because it isn't strictly accurate to say it's a presupposition.
Well, I'm saying that because... Sorry.
I'm done.
I
You
was
go.
saying that because don't they say that it's not a perfect sphere, right? It's a little chubbier at the bottom. So how is that a presupposed spherical Earth?
In the middle.
It's not a perfect sphere.
Chubbier in the middle. But I like the idea. We're going to be speaking more plainly.
Yes, well, the plane is where it's derived from, Neil. So the presupposition thereafter of this reification fallacy, which we've always described it as, still holds true. They are having to reify the sphere they've derived from flat plane measurements into existence to, strictly speaking, beg the question, because they're not aware most of the time. Most of our opponents currently, up until recently, were not aware. The reason I know that is because we weren't aware, and they are essentially the same as us, just on a slightly different path. So unless they're literally deceptive, that is to say they did know the globe Earth measurements and derivations and calculations came from a flat plane to begin with, but they chose to ignore it and tell us it's spherical. Oh, definitely we're actually standing on a sphere, even though I know it's been derived from flat Earth elevation angle measurements to Polaris to derive equators off a flat plane to call them outside edges of spheres with radial values. Well, those steps, if you know about them and ignore them, would mean deception. Now, I'm not going to claim that from 99% of our opponents. Some of them are just outright shills. But for the majority, they just didn't know. They didn't know that their globe Earth religion came from a flat plane measurement. Did you?
No, but according to the question, when did they come up with this molten iron core?
That's a necessity for their timeline. So the reason you need a molten iron core, and it needs to be oversized, is because of their journey through the heliocentric model with the scales of Kepler and the speed of light of Einstein. Gives them a certain timeline. Well, in their timeline, we've got to have A, something generating the magnetic fields, and B, something keeping us nice and cozy and warm in space. That would be a molten iron core. Not the right size based on the decay and the original formation of planetary-based molten iron cores that die off after a certain period. That's too short in the Kepler-based, Einsteinian-based, scaled, heliocentric world where we move around the sun through space. Well, in that instance, they need to extend the size and therefore life of the molten iron core so that it's still existing at this point of time based on Kepler's scales. And as I say, Huygens is Venus assumptions, which ultimately dictates the overall time frame and scales to each of these lights. Well, for that reason, they have the story of Thea, with the moon having an origin story in Earth, in the respect that
Paper mache. Paper mache. That's all I'm hearing is paper mache.
I was in the
No,
middle
you
of
got
telling the Thea story, but okay, that's the end of that story.
I was waiting for the Thea story. So it's self-perpetuating. There was a glancing blow. Go ahead, keep it going.
I got paper mache when I was about to start into Thea.
Sorry.
He's excited.
Okay, fine. So yeah, the necessity leaves you with the origin story of the moon coming from a different planet that was orbiting around the sun, like Earth and Mars or whichever other planets are formed in their story and narrative. But unbeknownst to the fledgling Earth, which was considerably smaller, it had a collision course imminent with Thea, a different planet, according to their story, which is true because they made it up themselves. Well, upon impacting with the fledgling Earth, Thea doesn't fully disintegrate. In fact, it deposits its gooey, juicy, delicious molten iron core into Earth. Now, through a prolonged period of gravitational accretion, the moon is formed from the debris of Thea and Earth's collision, and the molten iron core is left as an oversized molten iron core, still in effect today, many years later. So that is their story. There you go.
Takes a lot
Well,
of faith to believe in that.
With all that heat being deposited, remember the other day they had a problem trying to figure out where the water came from? Dr. Becky couldn't figure out where the water came from.
Well, that'll take you to the ontological primitives, and it did with us, right? If you're going to start rewinding the arrow of time, that's entropic law, well, then you're going to always end up at where did it all begin? What created this? Doesn't matter if it's life or water, you end up at the ontological primitives. And you only have two options. Either nature created everything that we know. That would be to say that the nature created the water that we know in existence. They can kick the can down the road and say it was deposited by another entity. Or where did that entity create the water? It's the same when you talk about the origins of the knower, the creator, God. It's the same argument, so just kick it down the road. Well, no, nature didn't create the water here. It was deposited from an alien source. Give you, I don't know, snowballs coming from space. Yeah, again, it's back to they want you, like with the current rhetoric of this crap that they claim has come from an asteroid they've scooped something off into the sky vacuum. They want you to believe that the origin of this planet is gravitational accretion. Gravity is their god. You know, everything that we need for life was pulled in after the heart of dying stars exploded out in line with entropic law, after the formation of the heavier elements through fusion, by way of second law and first law of thermodynamics violation in a sky vacuum, when the stars produce the materials that give us life in the heliocentric world. It's a very convoluted story, but it does have at least some continuity to it. Well, when we have the gravitational accretion to pull all of the materials, including snowballs and heavy metals and gold and all that crap, on Earth, they happen with enough time to be in the right place for nature on Earth to then create life. Right? That's what they have. That's their origin story. That's their answer to the ontological primitives. This whole bullshit is a way of getting around the first and second law of thermodynamics violations that are the answer to that side of the ontological primitives, with nature creating anything that we experience. The other side being there is an external creator, otherwise known to you and I, commonly known as God. Well, when you realise that there is a violation of the law of nature that is the second law of thermodynamics and first law in the case of nature not being able to create itself, it only transferring, well, then you realise that if it can't create itself, it can't create itself. You can't have nature creating itself when it violates a law of nature. That rules out that part of the ontological primitives, leaving you with one conclusion only. There was an external force that created this stuff.
Yeah, but they used to say gravity was a force. Now it's not a force, and the space is a flat space with space-time bending near objects. So they've changed their story quite a bit.
Yeah, it's got a lot of holes in it. That's why I said paper mache.
So does Mario
It's all
knows it's
falling apart.
Mario knows it's G. Says paper mache. I tried to do it over the top of Neil for you, Mario, but timing wasn't quite my strong point today. Thank you for the super chat. Okay, any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics?
Well, the hypothesis can be made, but it's not viable because they can't continue on with it after observe and declare. So just because you see a phenomena and you say, okay, now what? So with space, how are they ever going to test it?
Oakley dokley. Let's move on to the second part of this week's
Hang on.
videos.
Hang on. Did you say
I'm not about-
Oakley dokley?
He did.
It's Ned Flanders. You never seen Simpsons?
No, I'm just reminded that in 10 more shows, it'll be 1980, your channel name.
Maybe. That's very exciting. Yes, 1970, today's show. Okay, right.
So that means we're going to have a really good show, better than any show celebrating that name of that show, 1980, Nathan Oakley, Dokley.
I don't like to
Excellent.
make
But
such
before-
promises. I've got to be honest.
No, I'm making it.
Well,
Meg, before
let's-
you go to the video, because yesterday, you say that there's plenty of phenomena when we look up in the sky, right? But there's no way that we could put it through a scientific method, right? Because we can't vary and manipulate anything up there.
I didn't say that. Quote me.
Well, why can't it go through the scientific method then?
I'm pretty sure I said it could.
But we can't because we can't. It hasn't been done yet. Anything when we look up at the stars is what I'm saying.
Does that mean it can't go through the scientific? The reason we're asking for a viable hypothesis, yeah, is because we know damn well that they've got plenty of phenomena to be going on with that they could formulate a hypothesis with. What's that you say? We've seen a light twinkle. No. It was bending around the geodesic in space-time based on the speed of light and the atmospheric conditions we've discovered with spectroscopy. Really? Oh, that sounds very interesting. Sorry, so you've seen a light twinkle. That's a phenomena. Now, the method that you have at your disposal that would give you an empirical outcome would be to suppose the cause of that effect you study. Not tell us it's a gravitational lensing effect in 4D space-time. No. That's a just-so story. That's not establishing that what you suppose, in this case gravitational lensing, well, let's see you vary and manipulate that very natural, hypothetical, fourth-dimensional, pseudo-geometric idea that Einstein invented, called gravitational lensing. Let's see you vary and manipulate that as the cause of the effect, Neil. Oh, they can't. But they've still got a step 1 adherence. Observe natural phenomena. So that's why we ask for a hypothesis. Step 2, suppose a cause. Formulate it with a null. That's it. Do they do that? No, we get the lensing story, Neil, from the pseudo 4-dimensional space-time bullshit of Einstein. That's what we get. That's why we ask.
Do you think if they look back in history upon this era, it'll be thought of as the second dark ages?
Intellectually, probably. This will be the idiocracy age. Anybody seen Idiocracy?
Yeah, I couldn't take that movie though.
Yeah. My daughter was watching one of our phones, my youngest daughter, right? And my wife had got some educational thing that she brought up on her own phone. She went to Clover. I want you to watch this. So she gives her the phone. She's already holding one phone. So what she chose to do was hold both phones. I'm like, my God, I'm raising a kid in the land of idiocracy. Before I know it, she'll have 50 channels spread out all over a screen. You know, they also did it in, I think it was Back to the Future Part 2. You know, when they get the video screen. And he's like, I want the weather channel, I want the sports channel, I want this channel, I want 7, 8, 4, 3. And he just spreads them all out over the channel. It's just nothing but a wall of advertising. Same in Idiocracy. It's just a guy sat in a chair with all these million channels all spread out with just nothing but flashing up adverts constantly. That's the world we live in. it's a sad state of affairs. Now we critique some of the people in our own arena. I had Anthony doing it today, telling me about Bev. He's finally figuring out the perspective hijacking aspect of the Earth curve calculators. Anthony and I went through the joyful journey of several years ago. Now it's been memorized and put out into our ether, let's just call it, by the words perspective hijacking, right? The Rayleigh criterion, right? 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height feet. Where's that come from? Well, that's why we call it the perspective hijacking Earth curve maths. Well, Bev is now going through that process, according to Anthony. I haven't watched any of this. I'm not that interested, but Anthony was keen to tell me that he was excited with watching the penny drop for Bev when he asks, where did they get that 1.2? Go on.
Well, that's good news.
Yeah, that's a good thing. I ain't taking away. So in another 6 years, he'll get that there's a horizontal baseline for all that mathematics.
Maybe, but while we're critiquing people who have obviously got, I'm not going to knock Bev. Bev is not stupid, right? He's got a reasonable level of discernment. Some things he does are stupid. Don't get me wrong, and we point those out. I'm not going to do it now when I'm complimenting him. What I'm saying is, Bev doesn't represent your average Joe Normie, does he?
No.
No, he's a step above. In case you hadn't picked that up from the audience, if you're the guy that didn't pick that up, bugger off, go elsewhere. You're not welcome. There's a standard here.
I hate to disagree, but I'm not having Joe Normie castigated like that. No,
I'm not castigating Joe Normie. I'm raising up
anybody.
I'm raising up the standard of Bev, not castigating Joe Normie.
No, that's what I'm saying. No, he isn't at that level. No. It's very nice if you don't want to be rude to somebody to say that, but if you want honesty, no, he's nowhere near.
You're desperate to spin this. That's not my.
You struggle to compete with and comprehend. No, Joe Normie would comprehend those things. Level, flat. Joe Normie doesn't have a problem with these things. Yeah? No, Bev's not at that level.
Okay. Bev has got an inquiring mind that the general consensus-driven population that we encounter, and I'm naming Joe Normie, doesn't have. I'm pretty sure you know where I was going, but you were desperate to spin that, weren't you, Adam?
Yes. Just.
Right, number one, I am, as an individual, pretty damn fickle. Now, if you haven't picked up on this already, that's fine, but I am. In other words, I'll be shouting down Bev for his utter stupidity. You can do F all with an angle nonsense. And then the next breath I'll say, no, well, actually, no, I don't think the guy's stupid. I do think he's got an inquiring mind. He is on a journey of discovery. The fact that we went on that path quite a long time ago have now got catchphrases like begging the question, proof of nothing. Bev. Perspective hijacking. Earth curve calculator. Yeah, when you figure out it's the Rayleigh criterion, just let us know. Anyway, the point is that he's getting there, isn't he? That's not Joe Normie. Come on. Back me up, Adam. Come on. I know it means you've got to compliment Bev to a degree.
Because Joe Normie can cope with level is straight. Joe Normie doesn't take 2 years to figure out the black swan. Joe Normie doesn't have to admit he doesn't understand things, but spends time attacking people. This is the trouble with disingenuous people. Yeah? I'm not here to give him flattery. All I can do is view it. And if you're going to say something like, yeah, he's a little bit sharper than the average, there, boo-boo.
There it is.
I can only disagree, mate. I can only disagree from what's been evidenced. No, he's nowhere near as sharp as the average bear, as exemplified by his visits to us here, by his own YouTube stuff. Whether that idiocy has to be portrayed because he's got an agenda, different matter. But no, he doesn't demonstrate to me that he's a well clued up into it. If he's still not figured out why it's perspective hijacking, then your argument falls apart, mate.
I mean, I'm going to disagree. I'm going to say you face the public daily, and if you're telling me that you could rattle off the black swan and have somebody immediately understand it as a general Joe public member, I would beg to differ.
No, I didn't say that. If after 2 years and making shows about it, like last night, mind your P's and Q's, Emma, yeah? If after 2 years of that, you still weren't actually able to comprehend the point was being made to you, and your rebuttals only ever demonstrated your lack of understanding of the logical syllogism, lack of understandings of the claim of a ball, yeah, and your direction of critique was at the flat earthers presenting this all destroying evidence, but all you could do was attack them and demonstrate your lack of understanding. That's what I'm referring to.
Someone dig this out. I think we're going to end up covering this today, 10th, it looks like. If someone can dig out Bev's yesterday video, it seems that not only did Anthony go out of his way to call me about this, but you've also watched it, which means at the very least somebody can put the link to the video for Bev so he can get a shout out and people can go and let Bev know at Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me.
Okay, until then, please, this is a part 2 of a part 3 thing that you should do in order. Bev can wait. My gosh.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree. I don't know why I even
Well,
said
then,
it.
see, you're fickle. You just got fickle.
I
there, so
am
stop it.
totally fickle, aren't I?
All
That's
right,
why
let's go with
that's
part
why
2.
I'm like I am with Jaren. That's what I was getting to with that, actually. Likewise, the example with Bev is now over, so I won't reiterate that. But same goes with Jaren. You're like, this guy's calling you a scammer, but you still want to go out of your way to try and get him to understand science. I mean, at the moment, I'm not doing that. I'm having a little jab about the amount of views I get. Because I'm a prick. I'm just messing with him. But you know what I mean? Yeah, I'm very fickle. Yeah, I'll forget pretty quickly.
Yeah, but
that he's
that's
called me a scammer.
annoying.
Go on.
That's
Listen,
annoying.
But most of the time, your frustration is usually at your inability to convey the information in a way that they can understand it. That's what causes you to be fickle.
here, let me
Because they're not
remind
getting
you.
it.
I'm sorry, John. Go on. I apologize.
Yeah, because they're not getting it, you get frustrated with them, and it's understandable, you know, because we're just human. We all have our faults.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bev told me personally that the angle to Polaris establishes your latitude. Then Bev comes on the show, doesn't disagree, told me that, and then says you can do F all with an angle. Well, okay, can we move on now?
Yes, we can. Unless anybody's got any last remarks on this. But shout out to Bev. Hopefully someone's put a link to him. Please let Bev know at Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me. Like anybody else that we cover on the show, he does deserve the algorithmic love. Bev will be as bottom of the list as we are in that regard. If anything, he deserves more. So go and let him know, please. Hopefully someone will put a link to Bev's channel and the most recent video. In the meantime, once that's happened, I have and will again now put a link to this videographer as we are actually covering him visually as well as just chatting about him as we've just done with Bev. And again, it's astronavigation for beginners, and the videographer's name, which is Aswan something or other, I can't quite remember his name, Aswan Karula. So check him out. Again, let him know at Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me. But this is a different link to yesterday's because it's part 2. So unfortunately, you're going to have to deal with a lot of main term and distorted, overdriven microphones and various other stuff. But that's just the way it goes, I'm afraid. Not a lot I can do about it. Why have I got no sound?
All right, welcome back to part 2.
There we go.
I'm in OpenSCAD now, and the purpose of this particular module is going to be, we're going to try and repeat Eratosthenes' experiment. Well, not experiment actually, we're just going to repeat his procedure and we're going to figure out the radius of the Earth. But at the same
Wow, I didn't even have to make the correction. He made it for me.
time, we're going to realize that the concepts that he
You hear that? Not an experiment. So why did he accidentally call it one? Well, because it makes it sound more sciencey, doesn't it? And what's science? Well, science is a method of providing empirical validation of cause and effect relationships. This definitely isn't that. But if you call it an experiment, people prick their ears up and think that you're proving something, because that's what science does with experiments.
uses and the principles that he uses are extremely significant for astronavigation. And
Yeah, what he'll be doing is utilizing the flat plane that you've got bisecting this sphere with these lines here. Yeah, because this will be plotted out on the equatorial plane that's already being hinted at.
if you understand this part, the rest of it should be easy. So let's start. Okay, so this is OpenSCAD, and this is a 3D model of the Earth that I've made.
Yeah. Is this going to be a reification fallacy then?
Okay, so you can see there's a little hole in it over here. Right here there's a hole. Okay, now the way the story works is so Eratosthenes knew the earth was curved. He knew it was a sphere, right, like this.
So, step one, assume Earth is a sphere by saying, I already know Earth is a sphere. That's step one. Shout out to Sterling Archer. Sterling Archer? That's the cartoon from like 10 years ago. They're like Bob's Burgers voice guy. Shout out to you, my friend. Thank you very much for the super chat. Arwin, how about that military discussion? ? You coward. Okay, Sterling Archer. Thank you for the super chat.
Well, hold on a minute. But how could he already know it's a sphere, but be using the Earth as a baseline for his angles?
I think they get around that by slightly confusing people when they draw out a parallel, not a parallel, a vertical that's obviously with respect to you being at the top of a presupposed spherical Earth. Then they've got the well, so they draw out the angle by making the reference to the vertical rather than the horizontal that's obviously implicitly required when you're talking about anything vertically. But that's, I think, why they use the well, so that they can semi move themselves away from the horizontal that's also required by using the vertical down the well. Am I wrong?
Right, a vertical is 90 degrees, right?
Yeah, but if they only reference the well and the vertical line that goes down it, and then talk about the shadows from the sun, people won't be paying so much attention to the horizontal requirement because they're only talking about the vertical when they talk about the well.
Right,
Nathan. The other bit they miss, sorry, it's one deck. The other bit they miss as well in this is, as after he's, measured the angle between two locations and got an angle of 7.2 degrees, which is what he did. We'll give him that. We'll let him have that. But then he divides 7.2 into 360 degrees. Now, where did he get that from? Where did he get his 360?
He already said it. He assumes we're on a globe. So you can make the math work with any assumption.
But he's making the ground the protractor. When he makes that assumption, it's not so much that he's taking the measurement from a flat plane, but the angle that he's taking is a perspective representation. Whereas when they transpose that into the globe assumption, as on screen now, the protractor becomes the ground. That's how it's done. So in this case, the line that they've got on screen now, right? I don't care which orientation he's going to make his example with. I'm just going to use what's on screen now. We're going to call this the line of the equatorial plane, right? That goes through the center of the sphere Earth. Well, that is what will actually be used with you standing at the center of it. And if you're measuring out an angle, doesn't matter if it's a shadow or an angle to a star, you're measuring it with reference to this horizontal plane. Now, like I said earlier, if you've got a well, you can just try and ignore that and just only reference the vertical plane. But the two are intrinsically tied together. But what you've actually done is created a protractor over your position. That's what you're measuring. That's the angle. That's the angle they're referring to. But they're making that protractor the surface of the sphere. Now, the angles still have to tie up to whatever you're measuring. If it's an angle from a shadow from a sun or an angle from a star in navigation, it will still have to work, but it will move, as they describe with parallel light rays, to the center so that they can use it on the flat plane, the equatorial plane. Yeah? So it still makes sense. But what they're doing is adding in a protractor of radius 3959 miles and calling it the ground when you're standing in the protractor to get any of these angles. Does that make sense?
That's cheating.
That's the trick. That's the magic trick. Cheating, yeah, that's the trick of converting flat planes to balls. That's right. Yeah, it's a swindle.
From the beginning, I shared all the citations that all the angles for true altitude of said star or sun is from the rational horizon, which is the equatorial plane. And every sextant navigation measurement must adhere to that.
Paula
So
wants me to point out the other important detail, which would have come at the end. The equatorial plane that I just described, I think bifurcating this sphere as claimed to be a reification of the surface of Earth, which it isn't. Paul is pointing out that what's being navigated, well, if they're claiming this is the surface, then this is what must be navigated. And I'll just bring it up actually as Paula said it. Shout out to you, Paula. It says, but the equatorial plane isn't the surface being navigated at Nathan Oakley 1980. Correct. For them, they claim the surface is up here. For us, we're just using a grid-based system to navigate. But I'm not reifying that equatorial plane into the ground we're standing on. It's a useful flat plane system that does reference the flat plane we measure. They have a curved surface, and that is definitely not what we are navigating, even when we're describing it with the equatorial plane, when measuring, in reality, a flat plane. Because that's what we actually deal with. But thank you for the super chat. Really appreciate it. It wasn't a super chat. Thank you for the comment, Paula. Shout out to Shatner's Bassoon. Up the FED, up the panel. Please share the show. Indeedy. Thank you for the super chat.
But he wanted to figure out what the radius was. All right.
So he assumes Earth's a ball. Then he wants to know what the radius is of his assumed ball. Gotcha.
So now I'm gonna twist the story a little bit to suit my purposes. So if you want to look that up, I suggest you look it up on Wikipedia. It's an amazing story of science. But I'll just.
It's an amazing story of science. No, science establishes cause and effect relationships based on naturally occurring phenomena. There's no storytelling. There's experiments. And they either prove your cause to be true, or they prove your null hypothesis to be true. That's what experiments do. But this is a story of science. Great if you look it up on Wiki. Oh my God.
Let's use the parts of it that are necessary for me, okay? So what Eratosthenes did is he had a water well. So this is just a, you can see this is a hole in the earth. That's what a water well is, right? So what he did is he had this well, right? And so now let me show you a cutaway section of the earth just by editing my OpenSCAD code, right? You wouldn't have a well that's dug into the earth in this direction. A well would point towards the center of the earth because you cut them vertically downwards, right?
So therefore you assume that all lines that are vertical are actually reciprocating zenith angles moving to the center of a sphere Earth that Eratosthenes assumed when he decided that Earth was a sphere and that he was going to get a radius. Suddenly, parallel lines that are vertical aren't parallel. They move around a spherical Earth. Well, that's absurd. But there we go. That's what I already said it before we got here. But yeah, that's what they're doing.
So when he says going to the center of the earth, well, I don't know if he's ever lived on property or dug for a well like I have, but there are water tables, and neighbors next to you could tap into the same aquifer, and that could be a big one or a small one. So it's not necessarily all going down to the center of the earth. It's just underground.
Yeah, but Eratosthenes is assuming that Earth's a sphere and he's trying to get a radius for it. So therefore, when he digs the well, he's going to assume that the well's going to the center of it because he's assumed Earth's a sphere. So he can get its radius.
Right. But just remember what this guy said. Twist my story to suit my purposes. I'm only going to use the parts that are necessary for me. That's what he said before he went on to this. So just keep that in mind.
And it's a nice scientific story that you can look up the entirety of on Wiki if you choose to.
Now, what Eratosthenes did is he knew the Earth was a sphere, all right?
Got to make sure we all know that several times.
But he wanted to calculate the radius.
Can we pause here? This is a major point when I'm talking to people. If you're going to assume the Earth is a sphere, and then you take an angle measurement of 7.2 degrees from the shadow of a stick, you already believe you're on the sphere. So now you're going to use the math to prove what curvature this Earth needs so that you can find the radius. This is bollocks. You have to first prove that the Earth is a sphere before you assume it, and they haven't done that.
Well, you couldn't take angle measurements from its surface if it was a sphere.
Exactly, but they're not, even though they are, because they're all referencing the equatorial plane when they talk this way, as you'll find out.
Right. So he's not presupposing it's the surface is curving when he takes his angle.
No, that's the heist. That's what Neil said was unfair.
Okay, so he wanted to calculate this distance from the center of the Earth to the Earth's surface. He wanted this radius r. All right, and this is how he did that. Okay, so let me show you something else here, which is he waited for a particular day of the year. Okay, he waited for a particular day of the year when the sun was directly overhead this well, right? So this is the ray of light coming from the sun. Okay, this is a ray of light coming from infinity, from the sun. Okay, the sun is actually sending a whole lot of parallel rays towards the earth. Okay, but this one ray, this one yellow ray that you see, now that's actually going straight into the well, right? And you can see the reflection of the sun over here. So when Eratosthenes saw this point, so let me show you, going straight into the well.
Please. Okay,
Sounds archaic to me.
No, we just have to remind that in part one, he did his darndest to say that sunlight is coming parallel, which we know it's divergent. So see how they have to set that up first in the mind before they fool you?
Right? And you can see the reflection of the sun over here. So when Eratosthenes saw this point, so let me show you this again. Let's turn that a little bit. So when Eratosthenes, that's the reflection of the sun, right? So when he saw that dead center in his well, in the center of the well, he knew that the sun was perfectly above this point on Earth. So he knew that this angle was 90 degrees. So if this is, now this is where the 3D and the 2D become a little difficult to understand.
Right, you seem to brush over that. 90 degrees to what?
Seems to know a lot,
But
this
he knew that
Eratosthenes,
this-
doesn't he? He already knows the Earth's a curve, but he's not measured that yet. And he knows exactly where the sun is. He's quite a clever guy.
This angle was 90 degrees. Wherever you looked, this angle was 90 degrees.
What angle? That's not an angle. What are you talking about? That's not 90 degrees. Get a bit closer to my screen. Correct me if I'm wrong, has he just drawn a little square off the vertical line to the curve and called it 90 degrees?
Yes, he hasn't drawn the tangent plane that he needs to, which he can't have with the sphere. So this is why you're spotting it.
Don't worry about what he hasn't done. What he has done is drawn a box from a vertical meeting a curve and said it's 90. That's what he's done.
Cheating.
Another assumption.
No, it's just not 90.
I know that.
Let me just show the audience, right? I hope you can see my mouse. This is not 90.
Just for this one ray of light going into the well.
Go on, John.
And therefore, everything after that point
Fails.
falls apart.
Yep.
Yep.
From this point forth, absolutely, I should have said that, John. Well done. From this point forward, this does not work. It fails. Because he needs a reference to horizontal. And what we measure, well, we're measuring the surface. It's not giving him it. This is not 90. He's mentioned it twice. Let's just hear it again.
Understand? But he knew that this angle was 90 degrees. Wherever you look,
No, it isn't.
this angle was 90
Fail.
degrees. just for this one ray of light going into the well. Okay.
90 degrees to a curved surface. No, it isn't. This fails.
And that's why if I turn this around slightly and now show you the side view, you can see that, right? If this was Eratosthenes' local horizon, right? So the part of the earth that looked flat to him, this angle would be exactly 90 degrees. Now what he did, he sent...
Wait, what did he say?
He knows the Earth's a sphere, he's measuring its radius, but for the bit that's flat, no, he's contradicting what he's actually measuring. If he assumes that the area that he's measuring is flat, then he isn't measuring a sphere. You don't just draw out a nice flat surface and say, what is local horizon? No. The horizon's where the ground or sea meet the sky. Not some point out, if you extend it out here, is floating out in space devoid of the ground and is from every single point from where you draw this 90. Nothing is on the ground. So what are you talking about? Where are you getting this tangent?
Hold on. I think it's a good time to point out that there are no flat surfaces on a sphere at all.
He's just drawn one with an explanation that we're assuming we're a sphere and measuring a sphere, and we're getting a radius of the sphere. So therefore, when I measure it flat and get 90 from it, which I definitely will get from a flat and only from a flat surface, which would be completely impossible at all points on the spherical Earth, I'm assuming.
Also, even if he's going to try that trick with the horizon, the point is on the ground. There would be no horizon in that mathematical description. So that's invalid. He can't flatten out a spot, cut the top off an orange, any of that ridiculousness. He has to use that point, and that point does not give you 90 on the surface of the sphere.
Exactly. Where he drew out 90 and it did not exist, and now infers that Eratosthenes is going to assume that we've got a flat plane meeting the well at 90? Why would he do that if he's trying to measure Earth to sphere? Wouldn't he not see the flaw in his own methodology that requires Earth to be flat? But it gets worse, because that's not all he's going to do. This parallel light that he drew earlier and then quickly got rid of all the lines that he told you with an infinite sun, well, not 97 million miles? All right, okay, fine. But we've got an infinitely distant sun, so we definitely got the parallel light rays. Why? Well, because none of this works on the curved surface. So what's he going to do next? He's going to put it on the equatorial plane that I detailed earlier, with the protractor around you and not a globe Earth with you standing on its surface anymore. That's what he's going to do.
The student
so let me get this right. He knows
Nathan, hang on, Nathan. Hang on, Nathan.
Hold on. Go ahead, one deck.
I'll just get clearing up in my head, Nathan. So he knows the Earth's a sphere and he's not measured it, but when he's utilising the surface of the Earth, he's using it as a flat baseline.
Yes.
Ah, right. Gotcha.
Yeah, 10th.
Yeah, if you go to the last slide of Master B that I put, it's from Ben from Taboo Conspiracy on the Black Swan. And if you assume a 10-mile local horizon, well, you can easily, because the last oil platform was 9.41 miles and the horizon is well beyond that. So if it was the local horizon in this way of thinking was 10 miles, then Eratosthenes' local horizon would have proved the Earth with a radius of 264,000 miles, not 3959, to show the folly of this.
Well, no, they can't do that. The point is where the line intersects the ground. That's where your horizon would be. You can't extend it out and say that's 90. It doesn't work that way.
Right. I'm not coming from that argument. I'm coming within their fallacious reasoning when he assumed the Earth was a sphere and his local horizon, okay, with the shadow or whatever, 7.2 degrees, and then he does the math to get the curve. But if he's going to reference his local horizon on any given day, that could be closer or further based on the weather.
Yeah, that's not going to establish him as a flat tangent point. If he did, then ground isn't the ground anymore, as he's drawn a tiny little line. I mean, it's better depicted on yours, because you've got this green triangle. You're like, no, we're dealing with the ground. No, we're not dealing with lines that go out into space so that you can have a flat plane. Why would you need this? If you're describing Earth and measuring Earth and claiming to get radii, then you don't need any of it to be flat. Quite the contrary. But you do to do the measurements. Oh, so you do need it to be flat? Yeah. Do you hear the sound of those V10s and V12s? That's a load of Lamborghinis with people screaming out the window. You're going to need a flat Earth for this. Because your R-based measurement has its origins in a flat plane measurement. It's a measurement being taken on a flat plane. You're ruining the conclusion.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
It's a double whammy because he started the whole video series by saying he just wants to share concepts in astral navigation. Okay, well, the zenith position of the star has a GP, the zenith position of the observer with the sextant has a GP, and they must share the same baseline. Thousands of miles of horizontal baseline must be shared in order to get zenith distance. So he's killing himself more ways than one.
All the way over here, sent him over to a place, okay, somewhere else, right? And asked this person that, so what he did is Eratosthenes waited for the sun, okay, as the sun moved in the sky, he waited until the sun was dead overhead, and he knew that that was in the center of the well, and then he sent a smoke signal, okay, so he sent a signal by smoke like this, which this student.
So you're just going to make up a new story that isn't the same story. So in this story, let me get it straight. Eratosthenes made a freaking smoke signal when the actual story is it happened a year later on the same day. What's going on? Why has he invented this smoke signal bullshit?
Well, he has to do something to know, to prove or to put something forward. How they knew the person 500 stadia away knew the sun was directly overhead, so they have to have some sort of either 2 cups and a piece of string or some sort of communication. So he's just making some bullshit up again.
I see. So Morse code, smoke signal, whatever. I mean, let's just say they had a primitive form of fax machine.
I was just going to say, it sounds a bit archaic to me.
Recognized, right?
So we judge according to this story, radii of the Earth by measuring a flat plane and using smoke signals. Oh dear, why isn't this underneath globe Earth videos in a wiki tramp stamp?
And this guy's job was, this student, his job was, at that very moment, when Eratosthenes sent in the smoke signal, right? So at the same moment that the sun was dead ahead, dead above.
And he should be grateful to have that job. This is Asif, the assistant, and he used to be known as Asif Mr. Go and Get the Bloody Cup of Coffee. Now he's dealing with the smokes. I mean, he's had a major promotion in this. Why isn't Asif getting more credit?
Of Eratosthenes, right? So there's the sun right here. Sun is over here somewhere, right? So it's right above Eratosthenes, and Eratosthenes knew that by the reflection of the well, in the well, sends the smoke signal. At that very moment, this student was.
At that very moment? Hold on a second. I've seen the first puff. Second puff. Third puff.
Okay. Listen, I'm dying here. Okay, so he used the smoke signal, right? But I don't know if he says it or not. I can't remember. But, you got to start with the seconds, minutes, hours, day. It's got to be so precise so that you're not too far off, right? So I can just imagine that fire starting. By the time it gets high enough for someone to see it, if you could even see it, 500 miles away.
Hold on a second. That's a good point. Wouldn't the smoke signals prove a flat plane, if nothing else?
Well, that's the thing. You would have to burn all of Europe, even on a flat plane, to get those smoke signals to be seen.
Can someone just check the Metabunk calculator and see if they've got a Stadia conversion?
It might be why they say there was 2% out or something of the original curve measurement, which hasn't yet been measured, because the smoke might have been a bit delayed when the sun was directly over the well.
Yes, indeed.
That's percent.
Yeah, that's the
error.
couple of percent of the other measurement that never gets referenced, that nobody's ever done, that it was within the 2% of. That measurement that's never been seen and nobody's ever measured was only out by 2%, that we can't confirm and contrast and make sure it's 2% of it, because of the smoke signals. That's right. It took a little bit of time, and obviously they're only going to be a little bit out when Asif, which is usually the guy who's Mr. Go and get the bloody cup of coffee, is reading those smoke signals, 500 stadia away. Plus,
Listen,
did
Nathan,
they
hold on.
even factor in?
If this was the, sorry, let you stop.
Go ahead,
I'm
Neil.
saying if this was the level of proof that you guys were putting forth for flat Earth, I would not be a flat earther. Are you kidding me? People really hold on to this as it's some sort of truth?
Yes, archaic, innit?
Was
Well,
told.
listen.
Now you
Hang on. This is too good to pass up. So I just did the math in their Earth curve calculator. If the distance to the object is 500 miles and the eyesight level is a 6-foot man, the distance, the obscured object would be 164,000 feet behind the curve. You needed to start that fire a week before.
the angle of the sun. All right, so let's see how that happened. So let me just come back here to my OpenSCAD and let's just let us. Obviously, there's rays of light coming everywhere, right? So there's rays of light coming like this, all over this globe. Okay, some of them are just going past the globe also. They're not even hitting the globe; they're just going straight past the globe. But I'm just showing you only in this one.
Yes.
Plane of the Earth, just this one plane. Okay.
It's the globe, but when claiming to calculate the value of radius, he's had to utilize a flat plane to do so. It's that one with the light that's claimed to be at a set distance in the heliocentric model based on Kepler and Huygens is now at an infinite distance, so that we can have this blag of parallel light rays. Yes.
That's all that's of importance to us. All right, so let's turn this a little
even
bit.
in that assumption, though, the parallel ones, it'll still be hitting the equatorial plane at 90 degrees.
Correct. That's what he's got it drawn to. He's not got there yet, but he will.
Job done. Perfect. So we have a beautiful 30.
Oh, have I clicked onto a different video?
Well, he lost his
so this
accent.
is part 3 now of the. The sun is actually sending a whole lot of parallel rays towards the Earth. Okay, but this one ray, this one saw this Eratosthenes.
I accidentally pressed on the timeline.
That's the. Now this one ray, right? Student of this part of the well. This guy was. So that happened. Show the what the student was seeing. Okay, so let's render that. All right, here we are again. Now, these are now all the rays of light coming from the sun. Obviously, there's rays of light coming everywhere, right?
Hang on. I posted in Master B 2 images of divergent light, and then I posted that high altitude balloon showing the GP of the sun. How does that even conform to what he's saying now?
It doesn't.
So there's rays of light coming like this, all over this globe. Okay, some of them are just going past the globe also. They're not even hitting the globe; they're just going straight past the globe. But I'm just showing you only in this one plane of the Earth, just this one plane. Okay, that's all that's of importance to us. All right, so let's turn this a little bit.
Sorry, is that just the flat plane of the Earth on the sphere?
Now here comes the geometry.
He's getting there. He's getting there. He's getting there.
It's simple geometry, but it's monumental geometry, right? So okay, so this is Eratosthenes' local horizon, right? He sees the sun at 90 degrees. Okay,
to the flat plane that he needs.
But because the Earth is curved thus,
then it's not 90 degrees.
the observer over here does not see the sun at 90 degrees. You look here, this is overhead
Nobody sees it at 90 degrees to anything if the surface is curved.
for this observer over here. So if the student is standing here like this is right ahead for him. And now if he puts a stick over here, he'll get, let's say he put a stick over here, he would get the shadow of the sun because the sun is now reaching him at an angle. You can see that?
No, what you've drawn out is one straight line moving towards the parallel light to your infinite sun that you told us when you had a string of assumptions you told us weren't assumptions. But the second line is meeting curve. That is not an angle. Do you not understand what an angle is? It's two straight lines. What you have just drawn for Asif is not an angle.
Okay. Now what you need to see is that here it's 90, okay?
What 90? There are no 90s here.
Here it's a little less than 90.
No, it isn't. It's not 90 or a little less than 90. It's not an angle. Two straight lines will give you an angle. As John said earlier, about 5 minutes ago. From this point on, it's just a total fail.
Here it's a little less than 90.
No, it's not an angle at all. Not less than 90, just not an angle. You need two straight lines.
Less than that, and then less than that, until at some point there'll be some ray of light which is coming from the sun. And so as this person moves further and further away, he'll observe the sun because his local horizon is changing, you see. This is the local vertical for him. See this? Because the Earth is curved. The Earth is a sphere. So each person, depending on where you are, will observe the sun at a different angle. Right?
This guy conceded in his last video that you couldn't get an angle from a curve, and now he's just ignoring what he conceded.
Yes.
And saying Earth is a sphere about 4 times.
He's reaffirming the nonsense waffle that doesn't make sense with non-angles. Yes.
Let me show you that again. So, this observer here, right, if this is the vertical for that observer, he observes the sun at this angle. And this angle, so supposing we call this A, right? And Eratosthenes angle,
I see, there's where he's done it so you can do the same trick with the well. So now he's drawing the angle off the vertical. Yeah? You probably can't see this in the chat, but for the live audience, they can see what he's now doing. So, right. So it's the angle off the vertical. So, so it's almost like we've eradicated this absolute necessity of the two to be completely conjoined. That would be vertical and horizontal. With respect to the ground that we're going to curve? Oh, right. But if it doesn't give you an angle, and we only take the angle when assuming parallel light rays from the vertical, it's almost like the horizontal vanishes. It doesn't matter that we need a flat plane to do this anymore. Yeah, that's why they use a well. Yeah.
Well, Eratosthenes. Yeah, listen, I corrected Jared's flat Earth map on this because he was claiming that a zenith angle doesn't require a horizontal, just a vertical. And I made a video on this, and I showed a citation, several of them, where it showed that a zenith angle is the exact same thing as an elevation angle. It's just a 90-degree angle that's read in the opposite way. So an elevation angle is read from the horizontal up to the vertical, whereas a zenith angle is read from the vertical down to the horizontal. But they're still exactly the same thing. So people who try to equivocate with a zenith angle are literally either uninformed or lying to people. It's one or the other.
Well, they want to live in 2 dimensions where there's only the vertical plane. We've heard that from flat earthers as well.
Say B, and we know B is equal to 90, right? Because it's right ahead, it's directly above him, and its reflection is dead center in the well, okay? Which means that if you draw a line from the sun, okay, go all the way through its reflection and go down to the center of the earth, it will eventually touch the center of the earth. That's what it means to have something directly overhead you. So I want you to stop for a minute and just think about what that means.
That's wrong. That's not what Eratosthenes did. That is not what happened.
That's why he used the obelisk and the well, not just a well, or not just an obelisk. He used the obelisk and the well. The sun's GP was directly over the well, and he got a 7.24 angle off of his vertical, off the zenith, to the sun. But the GP was over the well, and the only way that works is for, like, he can mathematically try and bring an angle afterwards to the center of a sphere, but the only way it actually works in reality is for the horizontal of Eratosthenes' zenith angle to stretch to the well, and that be the GP of the sun.
Yeah, you're going to need a flat
It doesn't
plane to
work
do
any
this.
other way.
Absolutely correct. You will need a flat plane to do this. Absolutely correct. He's doing this so he can transpose the Eratosthenes example to the equatorial plane. He's using it for his own ends. That's why he's deviated. And he doesn't mind being a bit liberal with the truth in terms of smoke signals and stuff. We didn't major on that minor because he's already disclosed. I'm just using this for my own ends because he's going to be detailing navigation. So he's got to get this to the equatorial plane, and he's got old familiar Eratosthenes to do it with.
Wherever you are on the world, on the earth, right? If something is directly above you, overhead you, if you draw a line between your position, which is here, and that object, that line should go all the way to the center of the earth.
He's saying it twice because he needs to take what we're going to do with navigation away from the globe Earth and its curvy surface and to the flat plane in the middle of it. That's what he's got to do somehow. That's why he's reiterated it.
If that object is not...
The Earth in the Earth, the flat Earth inside the Earth, we need that. So you understand that this light ray that's directly overhead, that basically puts you in the center of Earth. We're all cool with that. We're all cool with being in the center of Earth now. It all makes sense. All good. Let's repeat it. So if it didn't, it does now.
Not directly above you. So for instance, this observer...
Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, it might be a little bit of reverb. That was my point yesterday about their parallel light claims from their sun and from the stars. You take all that away with the full moon shadow. That's all taken away. Takes the claim away completely. They can't claim anything because you can claim the opposite and they can't disprove it. That was the whole point. Is once you take that away, they can't bring it into the center of the globe because that's what they're doing. It's all mathematical, based off a pre-assumption. You can't bring things to the center of the globe. So they're just trying to claim that while ignoring the airplane, for instance, that will fly 6 miles above the Mariner, that's taking an angle 2 Polaris and get the exact same angle as the Mariner, right? But the Mariner is claimed to get an angle because he's being blocked by aircraft. But what's blocking the pilots, the navigator on the plane? There's no aircraft blocking that navigator. So how come they get the exact same angle? So there's this whole parallel light ray thing. You take that away and they have nothing when it comes to celestial navigation.
Right? The sun is not directly above. It's at some angle, which he calculated by, using the shadow and the stick method, whatever that angle is.
Off a flat plane.
But if you draw a line now between this guy's point and where he thinks the sunlight is coming from, you notice that it doesn't go through the center of the earth. Okay, let me show you again. Wherever you are on the earth, so let's say you're here, you have an object directly above you, overhead. If you join that object with your position, which is here, it will go through the center of the earth because the earth is a sphere. That's simple geometry. Okay? All right. So now we have this angle, which is 90 degrees. All right.
No, it isn't. Someone needs a lesson in what an angle is.
Right? And here comes the genius part now. This is...
Genius? You don't even know what an angle is. That's not 90. Idiot. This is not 90 degrees. You are wrong.
Eratosthenes' genius, right? And this is the observer, right? And he measures this angle from the vertical.
From the vertical? Oh, right. So what? Does the horizontal flat plane requirement vanish? No, it doesn't.
And it turns out to be this, right? Now, Eratosthenes said, let's draw a line between the center of the earth, okay, and this observer's position. So draw a line here, and then draw a line between the point where the sun is directly overhead. So this is the point on the Earth's surface where the sun is directly overhead. Okay, so draw a line that joins these two. All right. Eratosthenes said this angle, right, measured at the center of the Earth is equal to this angle. Now you can see that that's just simple
center of the Earth, moron.
geometry. If these two lines are parallel, if this line is parallel to this line, okay, and this is just one line going through this point on Earth. Remember, this line is parallel to this line. Okay, let me show that again. This is critical, so pay close attention to this. Right, so here's the observer. Join him to the center of the Earth.
Here's the observer going to the center of the Earth. This is critical. You all understand? Observer at the center of Earth. We all clear?
Right, and this is the point on the Earth where the sun is directly overhead. So join this to the center of the Earth. If this is indeed a perfect circle, right? So in astronavigation, we just assume the Earth is a perfect circle. It's not a perfect sphere. It's not really, but
No,
we just assume it is.
Yeah.
He seems to be overlooking that he's still doing it from the center of Earth, though.
What he's doing is he's making himself a protractor and justifying why the protractor is the surface.
So, you know, the difference is because of the oblate spheroid and things.
Go on, Brian.
Yeah, it's much worse than that. This is not what he's detailing there is a globe way out mathematically for helping them believe they can do celestial navigation on a sphere. But that's not what Eratosthenes did. It's very clear what Eratosthenes said. The reason for their claim of parallel light from their sun is because Eratosthenes stated that if the sun is this big and this far away, it'll match its angular size and it'll give us the same shadows we see in reality on a sphere of this size. But if it's not that big and far away, if it's small and local, then the Earth is flat. The only way he could explain away the shadows was not by bringing that into the center of any globe. It was by coming up with the parallel light ray BS. That's the Eratosthenes story. And he also, just 1 second, he also said, Earth is a sphere, but it's not a perfect circle. It's like, well, you can't do what you're doing. He doesn't even understand what he's doing. Requires it to be a perfect circle. It can't be an oblate spheroid. Otherwise, it won't work. It can't work. What they need to do by bringing the angle to the center, it can't work with an oblate spheroid. It can only work because the latitude and longitude grid won't work with an oblate spheroid. It's a perfect circle. They have to create a perfect circle via the hijacking of the latitude and longitude grid. So this is all completely wrong. He doesn't know what he's talking about. Sorry, John.
Right, but the mathematical get out is not a mathematical get out. The moment that he took and claimed that he could get a curve, an angle from a curve, it invalidated all the mathematics. This is a smoke screen. There's nothing here. There's nothing to see here. It's all wrong.
Or just puffs of smoke and smoke signals. Right, we're at the 11-minute and 44 in part 2, and we will continue with this tomorrow on the next stream. Oh, you smashed the super chat again. I just ended the live. I just shouted you out twice. My bad, meant more. Okay, thank you for all the super chats, D-Rose.
Yeah, you shouldn't have rounded out, Nathan.
Why not?
I forgot to slide.
You could have had more super chats.
You can always stay live forever, Howard. Excuse me, I'm so tired.
Yes, we
Up all
can.
night fiddling with computers.
You can still fiddle with your computers, just don't end the live stream.
This is a solid hour and 20 or something. We did more than normal because we're covering these quite in depth. I don't mind extending it a little bit. But, you know, tomorrow's another day. We'll cover part 2 from 11 minutes 44 onwards. Don't worry.
Yeah, this whole thing sounds a bit archaic to me.
It is. It's laughable that we get that tramp stamp.
I'll take
coffee. Talk amongst yourselves.
Did they ever replicate it? I'm sorry.
Don't let there be dead air. I'm going to go and get coffee, otherwise I'm going to fall asleep.
Well, I would take the tramp stamp, but celestial navigation should get the tramp stamp. Orbital mechanics should get the tramp stamp. What? Freaking Coriolis effect should get the tramp stamp. Like, if you're going to put the tramp stamp on one of us that's using a flat plane, you should put it on everyone that is.
No, theirs is high tech. But did anybody ever replicate this? I'm talking about the way he just described it with smoke signals. I want to see that done.
Well, you can't hold him to the smoke signals. He was just making something up, and he admitted to that.
Did anybody watch my show? Probably not. But there was like this cat figure in there, EV97, and turns out to be somebody else. Didn't reveal that, but I mean, Emma Peel spotted that, and they were claiming for the longest time now that they had been doing celestial navigation in some kind of training thing, and that they never needed a right angle triangle to do it. And I'm like, oh, you're actually a real person, and you're all natural, and you're really claiming that. I mean, they're just creating complete fictional people out there to bring forth a virtual claim of how things work when they obviously don't work that way. They're literally trying to create people, false people, to have false claims about how things work.
Yeah, but if that's the case, Owen, then they're fighting against all the books and everything, because the books say that's how it's done. Correct, Ken?
Yeah. But it's worse.
But I mean, the triangle's kind of irrelevant. If you're using one angle from the surface, that's over. Who cares about the triangle? I mean, the
triangle, it's instantly it's a right angle. It becomes a triangle immediately. And once the dip correction is done, it becomes a right angle triangle.
Yeah, if you're going to
because of the zenith from the GP,
yeah,
it's always because of that. It always is. So it can't not be.
Yeah, but that's irrelevant though. If you're using one angle, just one, that invalidates your whole sphere belief. You have to say that you never use angles if you think there's curving.
The point was that things are getting messed up. Some guy made a fake sock account persona of a woman, actually really pretended to be a woman for a long time, only to insert a false testimony of how you don't need right angle triangles for celestial navigation. That's what they're doing now. I mean, what the hell, man? These people are beyond insane.
They did that from the beginning.
What did the book say?
We know what the books say. They did that from the beginning. John's point here is that you can't have a 90, so you can't use angles on the curved surface. Done. Brian's point is how it's actually done is in the books, and you subtract from 90 to get your co-altitude for the zenith distance. And so what's the hypotenuse? That's the observer's view, the angle to the star. And what's that need? Two other sides? Yeah, the vertical of the star and the baseline that they share. So there's your right angle triangle. You're both right. They're just dancing around it.
Yeah, I ain't taking away from celestial navigation, but I'm not letting them get into that. They're not allowed to use celestial navigation. They shouldn't even be talking about it.
Well, you're right. They're never doing it from the surface that's curved. They're doing it from what they take you to the equatorial plane, but that is our surface that they're doing it from. Right. So basically, the globe, as Nathan said it, how many times I'm actually bored now. It's surplus to requirement. They're never getting it from a curved surface. Angles don't work from a curved surface. It's all done from the equatorial plane. Okay, so if it's done from the
Lamborghini,
I'm almost
address them.
No, I know. I'm just getting a bit tired of these stupid claims without any citations when we've provided all the citations for a right angle triangle, 90s, angles, what they are. This guy says geometry. I mean, we all heard what he said. It's simple geometry, monumental geometry, he said. Yeah, it's monumental because it doesn't work off a curved surface.
Monumental failure.
Yeah, but the
nonsense.
problem is with this argument is you need to address it at the origin of the problem. Their origin problem is the claim of parallel light, because that's why Eratosthenes had to focus on the shadows and ignore how he got the measurement. Right? I don't care whether people say he lived, or I don't even believe he lived. There's no evidence he lived. It doesn't matter. The story is out there. It's official. All we have to do is use the story. The point is that he needed to focus on the shadows, which means he needed the sun to be a certain size and a certain distance, right, to match its angular size to give us that, what he wanted to claim to be parallel light, almost parallel light, to give us the shadows we see in reality on a globe of 3959 miles. Take that away, the full moon shadow takes that claim away. It's gone. Now,
Yeah,
it's
but
nonsense
even
anyway. But the point I'm making is, once you leave them past that point, you're allowing them to start begging the question. And
no, you're skipping past the point where they get the angle to assert it's parallel to begin with, and saying that we should deal with the suppositions they make after they've taken the angle. The angle is the problem.
Yeah, but the angle is what, see, the parallel light is how Eratosthenes got to ignore the angle. He started with an elevation angle, then he ignored it by talking about the shadows and parallel light from a big sun this distance away, where we're on a globe. And that's what allows them to bring the angle to the center of their globe. They're just hijacking the effect that we see with the stars.
Right.
Take it or leave it. Take it or leave it.
Red herring.
This won't be disproven. I'm not. It's up to yourselves.
No,
I'm saying talking about the light rays is a red herring. Why would you want to talk about their red herring? I don't get it.
Because that's what allows them, their claim of parallel light rays from the stars is what allows them to bring the angle mathematically that they create on a tangent down to the center of their globe and then measure an arc length. That's why.
They can't use a tangent with Eratosthenes. He's using the surface for his shadows. There's no.
Yeah, but
what are you talking about?
They're ignoring that when. That's why I'm going straight back to Eratosthenes, because they're ignoring that when it comes to celestial navigation. That's my point. They're ignoring what they're using a tangent in celestial navigation. Hang on. The only reason they're able to bring the angle down mathematically is because we're allowing them this parallel light nonsense. Which started where? With Eratosthenes, someone who had to use the surface for his angle.
The only reason they're bringing down the angles that they can't get is because we're talking to them about what? No, they can't get the angles. Why is that point being allowed to be red herringed away from?
Because
for parallel light.
They can BS people and start talking about tangents to people who don't know any better. If you take away the parallel light thing, they have absolutely nothing. That's the point.
It's a red herring.
That's where the Eratosthenes trick came in.
A red herring is better than nothing, John.
I don't know. The minute you start arguing about the red herring, I think you've fallen into their trap.
The red herring is the thing that allows them, as soon as I ignore that, that allows them to start mathematically claiming the people are bringing an angle to the center of the globe. That's the point. As soon as I ignore that, that's when they can start doing that.
No, they're getting that. Where we measure the angle is from the surface with Eratosthenes. There's no dip angle corrections. There's no tangents. There's nothing there in that case. It's just the surface
I know that.
and a stick and shadow. Why would you talk about anything else? Like, who cares? Okay, light's parallel. Big deal. You're getting an angle from the surface. It must be flat.
Not if you use the Eratosthenes magic trick and convince a load of people that it's a globe by talking
That's
about
two
shadows.
different. Listen, you're both right. That's two different arguments, though. I mean, I've shown that guy. I'll find him. He says, if light is not coming in parallel, then celestial navigation on the globe is impossible. He states it. Okay, so there's the parallel light argument, And then there's the how'd you ever get an angle on the curved surface argument. John is on the angle that you never could have gotten. So who cares what light is doing? You still need a flat Earth. And Brian is showing how ridiculous the parallel light argument. These are two separate arguments.
Yeah, but the only reason I'm
You can argue with them. You can argue with them if you want to, but there's no argument with an angle being two straight lines. That is not an argument. There's no argument there. It's just a statement of fact.
But as soon as you look, but you're missing my point. As soon as you look past and allow them to have their parallel light nonsense, as soon as you allow that allows them. As soon as you allow that allows them to bring their angle off a tangent. Doesn't matter what Eratosthenes is. We're talking about what they're claiming to do in celestial navigation, what they're claiming to do in the world. When you allow them to bring that down to the center of their globe, that's when the hijacking begins.
Right, but Brian, I've actually talked to someone. Hang on, Adam, can I go before you just real quick? I've debated this with people, and I do what John does. Obviously, I show you can't have an elevation angle from a curve, baseline. And then they'll go with the parallel light on me. And I'll say, really, show it to me. Because all I can see is diverging light. And I show them all my diverging light photographs and videos. And they can't do either. So I treat it as a separate argument. I destroy one on one hand because they can't show it to me. And I destroy the other one because it's impossible from a curved surface. But I don't try to confuse the two unless they bring it in. If they bring it in, like, for example, if they say, well, light's coming in parallel, I go, please show me that in photographs and videos, please.
All right. How does parallel light give you an angle from a curve?
It can't.
So it's a red herring.
It will allow you with a radius of 3959 miles, if the sun is the right size and distance away, it will allow you to explain the shadows. And that's all they needed. That was the whole trick. No. Adam, you want to say something?
It won't give you the angle, though.
Sorry, I just got caught on my
silly question. Go ahead, Adam.
No, same. Sorry, guys. I just unmuted myself.
At the risk,
sorry.
Oh, okay.
At the risk,
the shadows, but go on. Whoever's talking, go on.
Asking a silly question. You're still going to need a flat baseline to measure the angle of the shadow. So what?
Obviously,
so,
yeah, that's not in question. That's not. Well, no one's arguing that. What I'm talking about is what is claimed via Eratosthenes is what they use to start begging the question. That's the point. When they take Eratosthenes, who had to use the Earth as a horizontal plane, right? They take Eratosthenes and then they turn that horizontal plane into a tangent, even though that's not what Eratosthenes did and was claimed to do. And then they use the second part of Eratosthenes, where he's claiming parallel light will sort out the shadows on a globe. Once the sun is this big and this far away, we get parallel light and that'll give us the shadows. They're taking that and hijacking the real angle and using that to bring the angle to the center of their globe. My point is, take that away from them and then they can't do that. Celestial navigation on a globe cannot work in any way, shape, or form mathematically. Because it can only work mathematically on a globe. It can't work any way, shape, or form, even mathematically, without parallel light rays.
Yeah, it won't work mathematically either. This is simple geometry. Two straight lines form an angle. I don't know why.
No, I can show it with a tangent plane. I can get an angle with a tangent plane, then bring it to the center of the globe and measure an out length. And I can show all that to a whole classroom of people in the university. And everyone will go, yeah, that's how it works. Because they don't know any better. And I can claim parallel light all along and nobody will challenge it.
So you can give a false claim, right? And nobody will notice. And that is somehow our problem.
It is our problem. The whole globe is a false claim. So yes, it is our problem. I'm sorry.
Right, but if you treat it as two separate arguments, we don't have a problem between the two of you.
Well,
I'm not making an argument.
That's the point. One is built
I'm
off
not making an argument. The only argument I'm making right now is between chasing a red herring, which that's what it is. When you say parallel light, you still need the flat baseline to get the angle from initially. The parallel light is a red herring to draw attention away from the fact you're getting the angle from the surface. I don't know why you would step away from that. If you're saying that you can mathematically, which you cannot,
You're missing the point.
You cannot get an angle from a curved surface mathematically or otherwise. That's false.
That's not the point. You're missing it. They're not doing what Eratosthenes did. They're using a tangent plane, but they're taking the parallel light ray claim that started with Eratosthenes and using that to bring that tangent angle off of a tangent plane down to the center of the globe, because you're allowing them parallel light.
Irrelevant.
That's my point.
Irrelevant of whether the light is parallel or not, you cannot get an angle from the surface if the surface is
They're
curved.
not claiming to get an angle from the surface. That's the point. They're claiming to get an angle off a tangent plane and then bring it down to the center of the globe. They're not claiming that.
What's the shadow being cast on?
Claiming.
What's the shadow being cast on? A
They're
tangent
not
plane?
using shadows in celestial navigation. You're missing the point completely. They're not using shadows.
You're arguing celestial navigation with people that have no right even talking about it. That's the problem.
Like I said, two different arguments, both right. And John, the shadow's not on the tangent plane, that's for sure. They have no right drawing a tangent plane, because if the Earth is a sphere, they got to use the sphere surface. Because it's not, they draw the tangent plane. That's one. Number two, light is not parallel. Number three, you can't get an angle from a curved surface. On all 3 points would kill him. Which one do you want to take on?
The moon shadow. Full moon shadow.
No, I agree. And that's fine. That's fine. But it's like, there's so many ways to kill this lie that we convolute sometimes when we're just the impossibility of an angle destroys everything. And then they'll say, yeah, but light is coming in parallel. And you say, good, I'm going to hold you to it. Show it to me. Prove it to me. And they can't.
Yeah, I can show how the point is that with the full moon shadow, I can show how even within their own paradigm, they have no grounding for this.
Thank you. That was the beauty. That's the beauty of your moon shadow argument. That proves that light is the distance isn't where it is, and the light isn't coming parallel. So we destroy that, which we can. We can do that with the diverging light from all the videos and pictures and so forth. We can destroy the fact that you have to add something to a curved surface to get an angle, which is a tangent plane. But the shadow is not being cast on a tangent plane; it's being cast on the surface of Earth, and there's your angle, which means the Earth is the equatorial plane itself. And then all you did was put the protractor and look at the arc of the protractor, made that the surface, which is really the celestial sphere, your local perspective view of the dome of the heavens above you, because you go from 0 to 180 and 90 is directly above you. So it's like, we know these 3 arguments, but if the angle kills them from this set from the first, then if they bring in light, well, great, I got an argument for that. We got moon shadows, we've got diverging. And then if they bring in, but if we draw a tangent plane and assume parallel light, I go, oh, you're adding things that aren't in nature.
Yeah, but my point is being missed.
It's not.
It is being missed. This is not a separate thing. As soon as you allow them parallel light, they can start begging the question.
Who said we allowed them? Who said? I've never allowed them parallel light.
The whole point of the full moon shadow is that within their own paradigm, mathematically, they can't actually show that it's not the moon that's big and far away and the sun small and local within that paradigm, or they're both big and far away, or they're both small and local over a horizontal plane. It takes all of that away. It shows how they don't have anything. That's the point. And that at that point, not one baller or one claimed celestial navigation expert can claim the Earth to be a globe, because you can show with that with the full moon working perfectly with a sundial, you can show that this is not possible within their claims.
We've proven the black swan is not possible, and they still don't listen. You prove with the sundial and the moon, and they still, these are separate arguments.
This is a little bit, yeah.
Brian, I'm on your side.
The average
Brian.
everyday person can hand wave it, but the experts can't hand wave it.
Listen, I'm on your side. The experts can't hand wave the black swan either, because if the Earth is a sphere, we're giving them their claim and we're testing it. They can't even hand wave dismiss that. They can't do it to any of the three things we just discussed. Which one do you want to lead with?
Can I ask you a question?
Which one is going to... I can forget.
Right. You can argue that.
Can George ask his question or not?
Right. If you're doing celestial navigation during the day, if you're using the sun as your reference point, within minutes apart for every reading, is that light parallel?
That's not for me. I don't argue celestial navigation with globers. I don't waste my time doing it, but that's for someone else.
But that's the only thing that they can claim the lights to be parallel, because if you're using the sun, for example, using just one reference point, within minutes apart of each reading, in order to have your three circles of equal altitude, to have your fix, you're using the sunlight as being parallel from every reading, not throughout, but from every reading. Same thing if you were using at night from three different celestial bodies, all of them will need to be parallel from each other. So if you're using the sunlight, you're doing the same thing, but to the same object in the sky.
Right, to make your angles work from the center of Earth. That's what the point of the parallel rays are, is to make the angles work from the center of Earth. If you want to argue with ballers about the center of Earth and we're taking measurements from it, you can. No one can stop you.
I'm not. I know that's towards me, John. I'm not arguing with them about angles from the center. I'm taking away their ability to bring an angle down to the center of the globe. You're not understanding it.
No, you're not getting my point.
Trying to make it slip through with everybody, like other people watching this, not really knowing. If other people not really knowing, read people falsely claiming that it's possible, they're gonna have a tendency to believe that if they don't really follow us too well. Right?
When you say, well, I'm sorry, but Brian, when you say we're not understanding it, that's not proper. He's taking a different tact to cut it off at the knees before he even gets there. But because he's not agreeing with you in the way you want to do it, you say we're not understand. We totally understand you.
There isn't a different tact, Tense. That's the point. There isn't a different tact. We can talk about elevation angles all day long, and they'll equivocate between shadows and tangent planes, and they'll do it as long as they need to do it to get that angle down to the center of the globe.
Who's the they in that scenario? Who's the they?
The Irish.
Irish.
Okay. No, see,
you may as well say that, Nathan. Exactly. I may as well be saying that. It's all Irish. We're up to that.
Okay, so here's what I see with the days of that argument, because I use days too, so I'm not jumping on your case. They will never accept any proof. So the days are people that will never change, because you can show them the light argument, the moon shadow argument, the tangent plane that has to be drawn that isn't there in reality argument, the angle that you can't get because there's no elevation angle that can work from a curved baseline. You can show them anything you want, black swan, throw it in, the whole kitchen sink, and they will never accept it. That's not who I'm talking to. If I find out that's who I'm talking to, I stop talking to them.
Full moon shadow, I'm using their own paradigm and their own maths for their moon and their sun and their globe, showing how they can't make those claims.
The black swan, I'm showing their map, their radius value, their claim of a sphere Earth, and they
No,
can't
that's
fight
a
that
red
either.
herring away from what I'm talking about.
Oh my gosh, this is nonsense. We've
And
proven
it's not,
beyond the
their
shadow
maths
of a doubt.
Their maths claims
Pun
a
intended.
constantly refracted horizon.
Oh,
That's
so,
their-
so now it's refraction, not the horizon.
No, it's
we're
not
talking.
refraction. It's not refraction. You're missing the point.
No, when they say it's refraction, then it's no longer the horizon. It's refraction that they're talking about. We're talking about the horizon. They're talking about refraction.
Right. And see, you can argue with them within their paradigm. You can do that. I'm not going to saying it's wrong. I'm saying you can do that. But I'm pointing out that with what we deal with in reality, you don't get angles from a curved surface. Never from.
The basic argument
No one's
that I
saying
saw.
you can. Oh, my God, nobody's saying you can. I have not
But
said
if I
that. My God, John, what a straw man.
He didn't
if
say
I
you
allow
said
them
it.
to ignore that,
He didn't
if
say
I allow
you
them
said
to
it.
ignore that and go into their paradigm where they're getting tangent planes to spheres and trying to bring that to the center of a sphere, then I can argue about the angles of light.
This is dip correction all over again. 2 years ago, dip correction, dip correction. No one wanted to know. This is going to be it again. I'm not going to do it. Take it or leave it. The people that you give out about, the people that you give out about that hold us back on our own side, you're being those people.
No one got you wrong on dip correction on my side for sure.
No.
We did it. We did a whole video on it. My goodness, that's not fair.
Why can't Brian argue his way and just let it be? And
He's not saying he
their
can't.
own way.
I told him he could, Neil. He could argue with the red herring if he wants to. That's fine. I told him he could argue with the red herring if he wants to. Stop saying that I'm telling him he can't do it. I'm just saying you're arguing with the red herring.
Yeah, but you throw the dagger at him when you say that. Come on.
Well, I ain't the one arguing with the red herring, Neil.
The problem, John, is that you think it's a red herring and you're belittling it by calling it a red herring. That's the problem. You don't see the relevance of it. Just like 2 years ago, people didn't see the relevance of the dip. What can I do? I can't make you see the relevance. Either see it or you don't.
Wrong. I brought up dip. I shared it. I saw it. And you had an argument with Nathan who kind of like, shimmied it away. And you corrected
Ye
Nathan.
is in the whole lot of ye together. Right?
That's not true.
2 years later, 2 years later, right? And it's a waste of time even arguing about dip anymore.
What
this
are
is
you
relevant,
even talking
and you don't
about?
see how relevant it is.
What are you even talking about?
I don't care.
That's not even
anymore.
reality.
I don't care anymore.
Okay, then stop talking about it because that's not reality what you're saying right there.
What's not reality? What's not reality? I didn't argue for 2 years. That I didn't try and get you to focus on dip for 2 years, and it became a joke.
Excuse me.
It literally became a joke.
No,
but that's not reality. That
oh my
didn't happen.
gosh, I'm done. This is so stupid. Yeah,
I'm not doing that for another 2 years with this thing. I don't like. You can keep on arguing that stuff while they're allowing them to beg the question.
That is so off of what happened. But your version is your version. You can have it.
What happened then, Tent? You tell me what happened. If me bringing up dip correction didn't end up with rolling and joke.
First of all, I brought up dip correction. That's first of all. Okay, let's get it right.
We're playing that game now. We're playing that game now. Are we playing the game of who brought it up first or who argued the point?
Are you wanting to listen?
Are you playing a different game here?
I guess you're not wanting to listen.
Are you playing the game of who brought it up first or who argued the point and saw the relevance?
I'm arguing the point because I brought it up first, and I said because the bubble sextant doesn't do dip, it requires a horizontal set by the spirit level. That in itself proves the Earth, when you do dip, height of eye, sea level, measured at port so that you know exactly what the true altitude could be after the correction, so you can subtract from 90, proves the Earth is flat. I've always held that case.
Yeah,
you had that one.
Straight to Bubba Sextant, missing the point.
You had the
Missing
one
the
wrangle.
point.
Oh gosh, you had the one wrangle.
I told you that in the past.
Forget it, Brian. You're not letting me talk.
When am I going to get to say that you're missing the point?
You always say we're missing the point when we're not missing the point. It's another point, and you say we're missing the point all the time.
Yeah, because we're talking about bubble sextants. Talking about bubble sextants is not talking about dip correction.
Oh my gosh. One requires it, one doesn't. They prove each other by
No,
the
they
fact.
don't. No, they don't.
Okay,
That's the
bye.
point.
I'm done. I'm done.
If they don't, if you look at what the borders have to claim for dip correction, no, they don't. They both end up being a tangent.
Oh my gosh, you are begging the question.
No, I'm not.
Yes, you are.
And you still are not getting it. You're the one who said you did get it, and now you just proved you didn't get it.
No,
the relevance of it.
You know what? I can't communicate with you when you're just going to be this way. I have citations I'm using to show how one works and how the other one works, and they both require a horizontal, one after correction, one without even the correction. They both must match. End of story.
Why do we have to talk about bubble sextants? Why can't we just focus on dip correction? Why 2 years later are you still talking about bubble sextants?
Oh my gosh, is this? Am I hearing this correctly?
What's this oh my gosh stuff?
The bubble sex.
Addressing my question.
Because you're impossible right now. I'm going to excuse myself because I love you and respect you, but you're impossible.
I don't know what you want from me. I don't know what you want from me. You brought up the very topic that moves away from dip correction. That after telling me you understood it from the start, yet you brought up bubble sextants, which moves away from dip correction.
I'm
not focusing on dip correction.
If you can, what I want from you is for you to be quiet for a minute so I could tell you why I did that.
I know why you did it, and it's wrong.
Then why are you asking me?
It was wrong 2 years ago. It's wrong now. I told you 2 years ago.
Okay, so let me now say what you say. You guys don't understand. You guys don't know what I mean. You're missing it. See, you're missing it.
What am I missing? Talking
Because
about bubble sextants is not talking about dip correction.
Oh gosh, Brian, it's so simple. I'll do it one last time, and then I'm going to go because this is frustrating. You have two navigators on the shore. One's holding a bubble sextant because he's on land and he can. And he uses the spirit level in the bubble sextant to have a fictitious horizon at his eye line. He is not required to do dip correction, which is just high divide. Okay, that's him. He gets a reading. The next guy next to him has a regular sextant. He uses the horizon. He must do a high divide correction of, say, 6 feet. They both come up with the same answer. That's my argument.
Nothing to do with focusing on dip correction, talking about bubble sextants, missing.
You don't understand how simple that was? That if the same reading...
That doesn't do anything
you're not
for
listening,
dip correction. It doesn't
you're not
prove or disprove anything with dip correction.
You're not listening. If one must take it to the surface of the earth with high divide correction, that must mean the surface of the earth is horizontal like the spirit level at the fictitious eye level, which means no curve.
You're missing.
Just that simple.
No, not when you see their dip claims.
Their dip claim doesn't match the citations of the dip claims I'm using.
Yes, it does.
No, these are anti-flat earthers who make up crap. I've shown the citations. They match what I just said. You see, you're stuck with the they. I'm stuck with the truth and the citations.
These are the people we're battling.
I'm not battling those people.
It's funny, right? You think the bubble sextant is the thing to talk about when we talk about dip correction. Yet when I bring up dip correction, who wants to talk about bubble sextants? All the ballers.
No,
they don't want to focus on it either. I wonder why.
You just missed everything, didn't you? The bubble sextant proves a flat earth.
It doesn't. It doesn't.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
No, it doesn't.
Yes, it does.
Not on its own like that.
Because they must share this. Because they must share. Oh my gosh! They must share the same baseline.
Oh yeah, which can be And what's the baseline for the time? What's the baseline after dip? What's the baseline? Where's that coming from? The oil
Ocean
line.
surface.
From
Ocean
the oil
surface.
line.
No,
it's
no.
oil
It's
line.
a depression angle correction.
Ask Adam. Ask Adam.
It's a depression angle correction because you're 6 feet.
Yeah. It is.
You know, you got to calm down so we can have a back and forth.
But you're not listening. You're trying to argue with me.
Why am I the only one not listening? Maybe you're not listening.
Is it coming from the oil line or not?
Which one?
When the dip has been done, is the horizontal at the oil line or at the sea surface?
When you're using the Mariner sextant, you're using the horizon, and you're above the sea surface, so you must bring it down at. And can I finish?
I asked you a straight question, and you're not answering
I'm trying to answer it the way I've read it and understood it, and you're not allowing me to. You know, I give up.
I know how you read it because I read those same citations.
I know I sent them to you.
It's not the correction itself, and I did ask Adam, mathematician, is not bringing the vertex down. It's bringing the line at the horizon up.
Listen, it's always subtracted, not added. Number one. Number
But that's
two.
a subtraction. That's also a subtraction.
Oh,
it's the same
gosh.
subtraction.
Just jump into my sentence anytime you feel like it. Brian, I love you, but
I'm trying to show you something.
Goodbye. I'm done
you're
with
not
you.
interested.
I'm so
You
frustrated.
are not having a conversation, Brian. Come on.
Hold on a second. Hold on.
I'm
Why don't you
done.
one at a time? Because I'm trying to understand it.
Maybe another day, because right now I can't believe that I'm going in this circle with Brian.
I'm going to go eat food anyway, so you can chat away. I won't continue with this on because I know it's only a waste of time.
It's too bad because I was really interested in both of your points, but it doesn't work if I can't make out what you're saying because you're simultaneously talking.
Me too. Why don't you both calm down and resume the conversation? Please.
I can't be calm anymore, Neil. It's been 2 years.
Yeah,
It's not been 2 years. I can't continue on being calm about it. I just have to ignore it.
You're playing the victim.
Just
get some lunch. But not I'm playing this. I am the victim of this.
Okay,
Sorry,
fine.
Alvin.
Yeah, I mean, and can you speak one at a time? Because it's like very like it's audio chaos, man.
No,
yeah, and I'm trying to understand
I speak when I feel like speaking. That's when I fucking speak.
Yeah, well, you're just causing audio chaos, bro.
Oh, well, don't listen then.
I'll catch you guys tomorrow.
You listen. No one's making you listen. Just turn off this. Hang up on Discord.
Brian, I love you.
I mean, you keep screaming, and yet all you do is just shut down. I mean, like it's not even coming through; it just speaks out.
Listen, hold on. It's both of them are doing it too. It's not just Brian. The 10th is doing it as well because they both got points. But I want to hear them.
Right, you were probably agreeing anyway, like always. Just having a hard time getting to that point.
We weren't agreeing.
Yeah, you were.
We weren't agreeing.
You were in the end.
I know what we were and we're not saying. Forget it.
You're both trying to argue for a flat Earth. Serious.
I'm trying to make a point, right? That I spent 2 years trying to get a focus on a dip correction that nobody wants to focus on, especially the ballers. And now I'm trying to get to focus on the taking away of the parallel light. No one wants to focus on. Okay then.
What are you talking about?
That was the way we ended up talking about dip correction. It started with parallel light. Were you here?
Yeah, I mean, parallel light comes up a lot, of course, because of the model.
But I asked you, were you here? Were you here when we were talking about when me and John were going
all
about parallel light?
You just spoke all over our
when you
ways.
guys started bickering because it just becomes I can't follow it anymore. You know, I'm not that great at following like really detailed mathematical related things. If then bickering comes on top of it, I just can't follow it at all. So I just started doing something else. I just got back like 5 minutes ago. So I just hope you guys could like stop doing that and just calm down and like give each other the room to just say what you need to say.
So, Brian, why don't you just break it down now? What are you trying to say?
Concerning what, Neil? The dip correction or their claim of parallel light? Which one?
Yeah, both of them. Why is it that we're ignoring it? I don't understand. What's the relevance of it? Break it down for me.
Well, What do you mean? Like, why you're ignoring? I can't give you why you're ignoring it. I don't know why you're ignoring it. I just know it's being ignored for 2
No,
years.
what's the importance of it? I said.
The
Like
importance
we
of the dip
spent like a
correction.
year already on dip correction and parallel lines. Well, there's something else that we're missing.
That's a good question because I'm lost as well.
Were you not here 2 years ago? And for the past 2 years? Have you not been here for the past 2 years? Were you not here 2 years ago when I was arguing I get people to focus on the dip correction? I'm making a parallel with that situation now when I'm trying to get people to focus on their claim of parallel light.
Hold on a second. Aren't all the lights in the sky running parallel to each other?
I don't
Isn't
know
that how
what you
the
mean.
GP,
That's not, I'm talking about their claims.
is found? I mean, in this context of celestial navigation, all the lights in the sky need to be running parallel to each other. I don't see what's the difficulty of that.
I'm talking about their claim of parallel light. That's what I'm talking about, their claim. And they're taking that away.
And with that,
Neil, to answer your question, because you asked me a question, and I tried to answer it, but someone else came in.
Say it started. Hold on, it started. It started with John, right? So why don't we take it from there?
Well, what do you want to know? No, if you start with John, you won't get anything out of me. Why are we starting with John? No offense to John, but why are we starting with John when I'm the person that has the grievance?
But that's what I'm saying. What is it?
Why don't we ring up QE? Do you know what I mean?
No, I'm saying where the argument started, where he was maybe after John, after that whole thing with John, and you were going with 10th, right?
The argument started, me and John started arguing because I was trying to make the point that the full moon shadow destroys their claims of parallel light from their sun, and then consequently from their stars, because the sun is a star in their model. It takes it away. That's the beginning and end of their parallel light. That's where it started, and that's what you take it away at that point. But once these people were arguing with, once they can claim parallel light, and you're leaving them claim, not saying you personally, but just you as QE said, the royal you. Once people are leaving them have that parallel light ray claim, that allows them to beg the question and bring the angle that they're going to claim is on a tangent, right, a tangent of their globe, bring that angle down to the center of their globe, and then mathematically measure an arc length, which is actually a horizontal, right? That's the radius of a circle, but they're going to turn it into an arc length. Then create what's known as a spherical cap, right, instead of a circle of equal altitude, and show mathematically how it all works on a globe, and we don't know what we're talking about. Now, all that is ended by taking away parallel light rays. All of it is ended. But instead, we can argue with them about 90 degrees that I understand they can't have, but they can create a right angle, right, to a tangent plane. That's the point. And the dip correction, just while we're on it, the dip correction, they create a tangent at the eye line by doing the correction by bringing the line up from the horizon up to the eye line. They create a tangent at the eye line, and that's where the angle is formed. And then they bring that angle down to the center of the globe when we allow them to have dip. So you allow them to have parallel light and allow them to have dip. And they can keep on making an argument. That's the point. Take them away and they can't. That was my point with dip 2 years ago. Focus on dip because that shows that they can't use their globe surface for the dip. They can't take a dip off of their geometric horizon. They can't do that. It doesn't work. But no one wanted to focus on it for 2 years. And now I'm talking about parallel light, which stops them from bringing the angle they will create at a tangent, right? down to the center of the globe. They won't be able to do that. You take away the parallel light claim. You show how there's no grounding for it whatsoever, even within the mathematics of their own paradigm. I can show the mathematics to show that it doesn't work. I can claim their moon is big and far away and their sun is small and local, and they can't disprove it within their own paradigm. I can claim both of them are big and far away, right? Or I can claim both of them are small and local, and they can't disprove it. And I
don't see a problem with that.
Yeah, but I can't get people to focus on it. I spent 2 years trying to get people to focus on the dip correction. When they bring up the dip correction, it became a joke. People were rolling their eyes and laughing. It became just a big joke. The thing, to me, it's like we're literally holding ourselves back by not focusing on that thing for 2 years. And now the parallel light ray, we can argue all day with them as long as they have parallel light rays right within their. We allow them to have that. They can keep bringing angles down to the center of the globe. Because they're hijacking an effect. In reality, there is an effect. When you go up high, you can get the same exact angle to a star, right? Let's say to Polaris. If I'm at 45 degrees latitude in a boat with a Mariner sextant, and there's a plane flying 6 miles above my head that's taking an angle to Polaris as well, they will also get 45 degrees, right? That's an effect that's happening with the celestials, because we don't know what the celestials are. But they're taking that and claiming, oh, it's parallel light, ignoring the fact that there's no Earth core blocking the pilot's view, right? How are they getting 45 degrees? And they're bringing that angle down to the center of the globe because we're allowing them to have parallel light rays. Take that away. That was my point with the dip correction. If we took that away from them until you went into how they can't do dip, right, from their geometric horizon, that's the end of it. It all ends there and then. But nobody focused on it. It became a joke. And now I'm not going to spend the next 2 years arguing to get rid of parallel light, because what's the point? It's going to become another joke.
Now, you were just describing that picture again, right?
Yeah, a few minutes ago, yeah. But that's the effect that they're hijacking and claiming that's what allows them. See, when you give them parallel light and allow them to claim that, straight away that allows them to bring an angle to a center of the globe.
And with that, I'm going to say a huge, massive, enormous thank you to both Discord and G+ panels for making today's after show possible. And of course, a massive thank you to all of you in either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley premiering streams, hopefully smashing the super chat, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, joining as a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member, and all that good stuff. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!